Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in. Well, I have Cinthia Pacheco with me today here on Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. Cinthia, welcome. You and I met through the podcast when I jumped on the pre-call. I learned all about your business on search engine optimization. So that's where we're taking this call today. And I was super excited because I've never actually interviewed anybody to talk about that. And I think it's an important topic and you've been doing it for a while. You've got some great things planned for the future. So yeah, I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Give yourself a bit of an introduction and then we're going to get right into it.
Yeah, thanks, Lynette, for having me here. I'm really excited and I love talking about this. I could talk about it all day. So my name's Cinthia Pacheco. I'm the owner and founder of Digital Bloom IQ, and we are a full stack digital marketing agency with a specialization, like you mentioned, of search marketing. But we also do paid ads. We do graphic design. We do just web building, just all the things you could think about in terms of digital marketing. And I have recently become a little more obsessed with AI search optimization, which we can definitely talk about in this chat. What else? Some fun facts about me. I actually live in Argentina. I'm Argentine Canadian, kind of a hybrid there. I was brought up in Toronto, but born in Argentina, came back when I was a little older. I have a 3-year-old daughter and she keeps me busy most days. And what else? I love to travel. I love good food. I mean, being Argentine, you have to just be a foodie here. Yeah, just a few fun facts, but yeah, I'm excited to talk about AI optimization because I think a lot of people are confused, I think, by it. And they're trying to understand, is this something I need to learn? Is this important? Is this like another trend? Because everyone's saying AI. And I think there's a lot of information on how to use AI in your business, but maybe that's confusing you with the part of AI search, right? Like, what does that mean?
I honestly think how to use AI in your business is confusing just as a general term, and the more you search it, the more you get. I know your belief is like to keep things just as simple as possible. You need this, do this when you've got those things. And I know we're going to get into that, the conversation a little bit. But can you just start first, like with your whole journey? Like, how did you, like building a digital business cross-border? I think a lot of people would love to be able to be, running a business from Argentina or wherever, and then plus you're balancing motherhood, just share a little bit of your journey and how it all came to fruition.
Sure. I guess I'll start from university. So I have a fine arts degree, but there was a lot of robotics and programming, which I'd already done before university. So I have a bit of a technical background, but mixed in with visual elements, which to me is marketing, right? Because marketing, you need to look at the visuals. You need to feel like what is resonating, right? But then, marketing does have technical elements when you're building a site or if you're doing some sort of coding. So after university, I actually did not do any marketing. I wanted to work in a gallery. I couldn't find any gallery jobs. And then I ended up moving to Argentina, which again, wasn't really planned. It was more like I want to travel. I just left university. I'm done. I don't want to study anything. I think we've all had that experience where you just want to like move away from a system and you need like freedom. And what happened to me is that every time my return ticket came up to go back to Canada, I just didn't want to leave. And I have family here, so I just felt very taken care of. I don't know. It was just obviously I'm meant to be here. And then over time, so at the beginning when I lived here, I taught English, which was also a great experience. I love teaching. I have courses online now too, but I have like a teacher profile, if you will. And teaching English is, if you can, speaking to like moving abroad and stuff, I think teaching English is something everybody should do, even if you don't think you're a good teacher, because you learn so much about other humans and you learn just to empathize. And you could like suck at like the teaching thing, but because here they just want to be exposed to native speakers, you could even do like conversation classes. Anyway, a whole other podcast maybe about that. And then I just happened to, I had a friend, I played soccer with women, and I had one woman who was like, she knew my skill set and she knew my background because we'd been talking. And she was trying to convince me to talk to a headhunter who specialized in digital agencies. And I kept saying no to her because I was like, I don't know what that is. Like, I don't want to do that. And finally I was like, fine. And then the next day, I basically got a job proposal. And about 3 months later, I ended up working for a South African agency here in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, where they have an office. And that was like it was such a gift because I was able to see this whole world of running an agency, like you said, from a different place. And also the just different people from all over the world because the headquarters was in South Africa. So we had a lot of South African colleagues. All the clients were in North America. So they had us strategically in Buenos Aires because the time zone difference is pretty good, right? With the North American clients. And after a few years of doing that, I really loved it. It was really a very immersive experience and I learned a lot. I just was like, I want to do this for myself. I don't know how, like I don't have a business degree. I have no idea what this is going to look like. But I knew I loved working with clients. I had another friend who was a female entrepreneur and she showed me all these other women doing their own businesses. And it just clicked in my head. I need to help these women how to market, like learn how to market their businesses, because that's what I bring to the table. And I love this idea of being part of this ecosystem of other female founders. And yeah, and it took a while to get there, right? At the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. I started offering a service that didn't work and it took me about a year, 2 years to figure out that's not the way to go, but it was a foundation. I did get a few clients. There was a lot of experimentation. And now, 10 years later, I have a team. So I'm able to go back to, again, what's my mission and how do I want to serve the world with what I do, and having an agency and a team. And again, that wasn't the initial concept. I wasn't like, I want a team. It was very much, well, I just want to work with clients abroad and I want to do what I do. But the team thing has been great. And I feel so grateful that I get to do this.
Yeah, no. Like, and that whole last part of that story it just showed so much, taking a chance, taking a risk on yourself. If we don't push ourselves forward, we're going to stay where we are. And I think so many women, midlife women, any woman, we don't take that step. And, you took the step and, you didn't fully bake an offer. Well, maybe you did, but then you realized quickly that offer wasn't exactly what you wanted or what even your clients wanted. And so you pivoted. And I think that's what we've got to remember, right? Is that you can start this business. It's not going to be exactly how you think. So just get going on it, because what makes it move and ebb and flow is your clients and the feedback. So let's start. I think I'm going to ask you the most basic question right now. What is search engine optimization?
Yes, it's a great question. I know a lot of people are like, what does it mean? All right, so this is my definition of it. So you might see different versions of this, hopefully not too off, but the idea of search engine optimization is having your website show up in Google as a recommended either business or if you have information that you're sharing, right? So for you, Lynette, it might be someone searching, midlife coach or a female midlife coach, right? So if someone's searching for that in Google, it's pretty clear what they're looking for, right? So we call that a transactional search. And so that's the end result. Like we want to show up in that place or to basically market our business to people who are either already looking for what we have to offer or are at this different stages in the funnel. So they might, like, for example, for you, Lynette, I'm just using you as an example because I have you in front of me. Maybe you have people who are searching like, I feel stuck, or, that's a little bit broad, but maybe like there's very specific experiences that they're having that you can speak to that would lead them to you, right? So maybe they don't even know what a coach is yet. Maybe they don't even know if they need a coach, but they're not feeling fulfilled, right? So you want to target people who are both aware of you in terms of what you provide in a service and an offer, and the people who aren't aware, right? So they're just struggling, and you need to identify what are those kind of trigger points that what would they be searching, right? If they're struggling in their career, maybe they are searching, resume writing, but then they find you and they're like, oh, I actually want to change, my career. I want to try this entrepreneur thing.
Yeah, I was just
Or-
going to say to you, like, I can give you some of those keywords. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
how to pivot from my career, or I just lost my job.
Yeah.
How can I start a business, or, how
Exactly.
can I determine what skills I have to start a business, things like
Exactly.
that. Like, I think that's what they're Google searching for sure.
Yeah. So in terms of doing SEO, that's where it doesn't get complicated, but I feel like I lose people because it does get a little more technical in that, our sites and our online presence, all this thing that is the internet, it has a back end, right? And so we need to make sure that back end is working. It's kind of like, any electronics, like the back end with all the crazy cables that is covered, right? You don't usually see that part, but if that part's not correctly wired, it doesn't matter how much you polish the front, of the screen, it's not going to work. So SEO does have a technical element where we think about things like site speed. I think that's the best example. Like, so how do we make a website fast and easy to navigate, or just how your code and your website is structured? So because Google basically scans our websites, so there's bots that scan each website and understand what it's about. And now AI tools are doing that too. So we've got the assistants and the agents, right, scanning and understanding our sites. It's like the more structured it is for them to understand it, the easier they can pull from that information. So that's kind of like the most abstract and technical if you're not technical. And I don't think you actually need to be technical to do some of the stuff there. You just need to know exactly what areas to get into. The other pillar of SEO is content, which is what we were talking about before, like creating valuable content that people are actually searching. A lot of the times I find with my clients, and maybe you find this too, Lynette, is that they get to in their expert mode and they don't think about how people are searching from when they don't know, right? So that is a big barrier. So we have one client, she's a doctor. She's amazing, does incredible work. And she kept using very medical terms. And we were trying to show her, your audience doesn't understand that. Now, of course, you need to show that you're a doctor and that you know all the correct terms. But let's show you what are actually people searching, right? From a very elemental point of view. And that really opened her eyes. And she's like, because that's the key part of SEO. If we can connect with what people are actually searching and then connect the dots of like, we can help you with this, that's where you can really get that return on investment. And sometimes the way people search is not the way that you would normally think about it in your expert brain, right?
I think that's something super interesting we need to talk about, because it's not just in search engine optimization, it's in your offers, it's the way, it's in everything.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's better to start a business when you just have that 10% edge,
Yeah.
because it's so relatable. You get it. And like you said, so I think that if I can just summarize what you just said there, or paraphrase what you just said there, is go back to when you first were starting. What were
Yeah.
were your challenges? Where did you get stuck? And use those terms and words in your marketing.
Yeah.
It's so important, because I think sometimes we can say things. I think it's kind of like that doctor, unbeknowingly, she kind of was using terms to prove her accreditation and her, affirm who she was as a thought leader and an expert. But yeah, it's really interesting. I think even as a coach, you want to be relatable, right? And you have to use the language that's relatable. It's really good. I think I wanted to highlight that, because anybody that's listening, I think everybody's got to go back and look at their sales pages. What are they talking about? Make it so simple that, I used to always say, like, tell me like you're telling my 5-year-old,
Yeah. That's the best
explain to me like
advice.
exactly. So
And I do too, by the way. I struggle with it too. I have my friend Jen, who's a Pinterest expert, and she says it's like looking at the label from the inside of the jar. I think that's what happens to a lot of us. Like, we're in the jar, right? And we see the back of the label and we don't see the front, and we're just so stuck on the back. It's like no one cares about that. And it's hard to hear that, because I love SEO. I could nerd out on SEO, but I realized my clients don't care about SEO. They want to grow their business. They want, to grow their revenue. They want to double the amount of clients they have. And so that's what I need to be speaking to. And then some clients get curious and they might ask you, okay, but at the end of the day, it's like, they don't probably care too much about what you do as long as you're getting them the results that they're looking for.
Exactly. And I think a lot of cases too, a woman can feel maybe like a little bit plateaued in her business. And for me, the question for you is how can search engine really help them break through to that next level of growth? It's not just about going out and doing a bunch of cold calls or, and trying to find leads. It's also, I think it can help them maybe, no?
Absolutely. I think a lot of women, they shy away from SEO because, like we were saying before, it can sound very technical. It can sound like complicated versus, opening up Instagram and doing a reel. And I'm not against social media. I do a lot of social media for myself. But one thing I talk a lot about is just diversifying your marketing and also investing in both short-term and long-term marketing. So because SEO takes time, that also throws a lot of people off. It can take time, but it's more stable. It's like growing a tree, right? So once you've got an orange tree or a pear tree, it keeps giving you fruit each year, and you don't necessarily need to plant more and more trees. And it's just so great when I talk to clients that we started working with 4 years ago, and they'll be like, remember that content piece we worked on? That's getting me sales, right? And it's, maybe it does take 6 months to a year, which to me isn't that much time. But for some reason, we're very impatient. And it's for some reason also we trick ourselves that social media does work faster, but it does take time to grow on Instagram too. And a reel can take an hour to edit. Like instead of that hour with a reel, write a blog, write a content piece, right? That again, your audience is searching. So think about it like that when you think about, okay, I'm going to diversify marketing because I just pulled up the numbers. And right now, Google has over 9.5 million searches every minute. That's a lot, 14 billion per day. Now, not all of those are relevant to our business. Obviously, a lot of them are like when we search, like Google counts if someone's searching like Instagram to find Instagram, right? So that's not a very interesting search. But even if like half of those, or even if we had like a teeny tiny percentage, like think about how your business would grow if you're tapping into an audience that is not only searching for you, but is probably much closer to wanting to buy versus someone on social media where it's kind of hard to know, where they are in the funnel exactly. Like, are they ready? Are they like lower down, or are they just, social media is very lifestyle-y as well, which can be hard, if you don't want to dance around in your reels.
So everything you were saying there sort of prompts me to think like, how important is it really to have your own website? And I also think when I think about the word website, I think, oh, where do I host it? How do I build it? I got to get a million templates. I got to have a million photos. But when you were talking, I thought, why can't we just have a website? Let's say LynetteTurner.com. If you went there, you would actually only see my podcast, but just have like seriously, just a bunch of blog posts. I could put an image and transcribe all of my podcasts actually and put it on. That's what I was thinking. Actually, I was like having a little breakthrough of my own, and obviously, take the transcription and make it more of an article. But yeah, like, do you think we need to have the glossy brochure, or is it just trying to drive traffic to Lynette Turner?
So I think it depends a little bit on your business. So if you're like an e-commerce business and you're online, you don't have any brick and mortar, you're dependent on your site, right? And you need to have a very strong experience because you're asking people to spend money on something that they can't get their hands on yet. Now, we're in an age where it's, especially after COVID, we just got really used to buying things online. If not, we're just happy to put our credit cards everywhere. But there's still like a lot that needs to happen. And so I think it depends a little bit on your service or product and a little bit on your branding. If you are a flashy brand or, you might want to use that in your favor. Now, going to your question, I don't think a site needs 1,000 pages to rank well. It's actually better to have less content that is more focused and valuable than going for like what used to work would be to blog more and more. And there is like a metric there around freshness, like content freshness. But you can say to Google, hey, I went back and improved this thing that I wrote a few weeks ago. And that still counts. So for you, I absolutely recommend your podcast pages could rank on their own You could rank when you got guests, you can rank for the other person's name. So if someone's searching Cinthia Pacheco, your site might come up in that first, page because you interviewed me. And so that's kind of a cool strategy if you have people who have a lot of following. I've had that happen to me with my podcast where the person I interviewed didn't have a website. So my website was showing up for them and I got to use that traffic. Now it doesn't always make sense because if the person's, it's more a little bit of a random. I don't recommend just doing that strategy, but you can do that with the keywords where someone is searching. Yeah, like how to all the midlife stuff that you talk about, right? And so you could take that show notes page and make it really SEO friendly so that Google's picking up on that and the AI tools are picking up on that.
So show notes, that's the podcast description in my YouTube channel, Spotify and Apple, but then also
On your
that
website.
on my website. And so you said a couple of things there that I want to ask you about. What you're saying is before it used to be blog, but maybe now it's not so much blog. It's more what?
People get really stuck with the word blog. And I think because there is a whole blogger industry. And so if you're a blogger, that's what you do, right? You create content. But as business owners, maybe the word blog feels like I don't want it. It's like a journal. Like, what am I going to write about? Again, lifestyle. So I tell my students and my clients, just call it whatever you want. If you want to call it content creation, if it inspires you, basically words and images and a video, like depending on what you're creating, it's something content on your site, on of this place online that you call your online home. And going back to your question, which I didn't really answer, like, do you need a website? The thing with having a website is that it gives you much more control versus if you just if you got found through like your show notes or whatever. So on your site, you can point people to your offers. You can actually make money from it, right? So it's not so much that you have to have a site. It gives you just so much more control than if you're dependent on other platforms where you don't know exactly how you might show up, right? But yeah, there are like combos, like I know Kajabi, like some of these course platforms have now sites. That still counts. Like that's a site because it has your domain and you can control. Having a WordPress site, you might have more control. All these platforms have pros and cons, but at the end of the day, honestly, it doesn't matter the platform. It's more like, what are you putting on there? What value are you providing the world? And how are you doing it in a way that maybe no one has seen quite before? So how are you bringing your spin on it, your voice? And again, sometimes it's like how you present the information. So maybe all your competitors have, blogs, content, but you have an infographic that no one has thought about that. Like if you work with mindset, I don't know, I'm sure a lot of your clients have mindset stuff come up, right? Maybe you have breathing exercises as audios within the content itself. Maybe you take a few podcast episodes and you embed them in the page in a way where it like answers different parts of a question so that it's helpful because they don't need to go to 3 different pages. They get it all on one page. So you can take whatever you've already created and use that for your website. And that's really the trick. If you can sit down and like look at your content creation, whatever you're doing, if you can repurpose that for your site, it's going to make it a lot easier and you don't need to necessarily write something from scratch.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's repurposing, right? The word is repurpose. That's all I heard you saying actually. So that's really good. A couple of questions. So let's say, everybody seems to have a Substack. Like every time I'm like, following somebody or whatever, it's like, join my Substack. Is that something that, because I think about the platform itself. What is that platform? What is the Substack platform doing for search engine optimization for my free newsletter or whatever that's on there? I'll
Yeah.
give you an example. A school community, which I'm just about to launch my school community. School is, I think, probably doing, I don't know, just in my personal opinion, one of the best jobs right now of just getting out there, their marketing, it's everybody. It just seems to be driving traffic and you can drive it right to your about page. So it's your landing page, it's your sales page. And so my thing is let's say there's somebody listening now that has a Substack. newsletter, and what should she be thinking about in terms of optimizing that time and effort in writing that newsletter?
Yeah. So with any platform, and again, I'm of the thought that it doesn't matter the platform. And maybe there's other SEOs that would cringe at that because there are online platforms that are more SEO customizable than maybe something like Substack. But as long as basically Google can find that it's not private, like that newsletter, it's a public URL, then it can be found by Google and AI tools. And so in terms of what you can do is very similar to what you do for content creation for a site. Find the words and the phrases that people are searching, connect the dots for them, provide value. Don't just say what everyone else would say. Like, think about it a little bit, give them an experience. Maybe you're talking about your own story, and that can be something you embed into the content. Maybe you have a case study. Maybe you have some beautiful graphs. Like I'm sure the platform lets you do, images and videos and stuff like that. So how are you putting your spin on it so that it's standing out a little bit with your vibe? So it doesn't mean you need to be someone else, but we are at a stage where there's a very high bar for good content. It used to be like, I don't know, 10 years ago, as long as you mentioned the keyword in the title, in the heading, in the body of the content, you would rank and Google wouldn't really distinguish it. But now there's so many more factors and there's so much more content. So you want to be thinking about, again, how are you raising that bar and how are you providing something that maybe just really does change people's lives when they read it, when they experience it. It's not always necessarily about more text. Like I have a lot of clients who are photographers and they have very little text on their site because someone goes to a photographer website, they want photography. And so sometimes I've seen blogs and content that does really well because it's like literally 100 images that load fairly fast and people keep scrolling and they're getting that experience of working with that photographer and there's like tiny pieces of text. So I laugh when, people are like, write at least 1,000 words. Don't worry about the word count. Think about what are you doing with this piece that no one has seen before. Now it's hard to do that with all the content you put out there because that's hard to like output that. But if you can aim like maybe once a month or twice a month, you're focusing on these pillar evergreen pieces of content that people are searching and how are you doing something really unique, really special. Another little trick that I've given my clients and students is do it in phases because writing that evergreen like content that's going to rank might feel like a big task that you never get to. So do it in parts, like do 20% and publish it. I think a lot of people don't know that. Like you could just publish it. It will start ranking and then you improve it in 2 weeks and you keep working on it. It doesn't have to be something you book out a week to write. It could be something that you slowly work towards over time. And you're going to start to see those results. You're going to start to get excited and then you're going to go back and keep improving those pages. So those are a few little tips there that might help.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. And when you say get that article out, because you could fine tune it forever.
Yes.
I do want to get into the AI conversation. Once you answer this question, it'll lead to the AI part of it. But so when you say improve it, are you saying go back and improve that same article? Or are you saying, okay, so don't think of it as one and done.
No, I think we're all very much trained with social media where it's like a little bit of a garbage can of content. Like you create it and it's gone and you create it and it's gone. And again, I love Instagram, but there's moments where it's very demotivating because the reel that you took an hour to do, unless you repost it, right, which you can do, it can just feel like, man, I'm putting a lot of effort in this. And if it doesn't really launch in the first few days, it's not going to go anywhere. Now, with SEO and search optimization and the AI optimization as well, it is very important to go back and see. Again, my favorite analogy is like gardening. If you're into gardening, it's great, right? So you plant your seeds, they start to bud. If one doesn't immediately bud, you don't rip it out of the ground, right? You go back, you water it, you like check, okay, maybe the soil needs a little bit of a mineral. You maybe prune, right? You give it time to come up. You look at the sun, you look at, all the elements. So the same thing happens with SEO. You start to see the keywords you're ranking in, you start to see which ones are doing well. And you go back and you might add content, you might remove content, you might analyze, okay, what's happening on that page? Are people getting to the bottom? How can I, maybe I need to add more images so that the eye rests. We have a lot of studies that show like blocks of text don't do well. No one wants to read that. So like, how are you spacing things out? How are you creating that experience that makes people want to stay? And yeah, there's a lot of things you could do on page, but at the end of the day, it's very much about going back and just focusing on the areas of your site that are doing well. And, once in a while, publishing something new. Why not?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. All right. So you said it, AI and, you know, obviously AI is changing the way we think about everything, actually. And I think there's a bit of a panic, a sense, at least for me anyway. I think, oh my God, what am I not doing? Or I need other tools. And I don't know, I do want to improve my workflow, but I don't know how. And so then it just gets overwhelming. And I just go back to my manually inputting everything in the Google spreadsheet. But anyway, okay, so let's talk about it. I know that you also not only do this search engine optimization and other design elements for women business owners, but you also have a course. So take us through the course. And while you're taking us through the course, weave through, how is AI changing the way we think about anything, specifically search engine optimization?
Yeah, so I want to recognize that it is very overwhelming. And I've been overwhelmed. I mean, I have moments, I have waves because it has been a very pivotal moment in, kind of the digital world. That being said, it's an opportunity to also go back to what's most important to us and to think about, again, what am I bringing to the table? Because AI at the end of the day is a robot and it can do a lot of things, but it can never take away your vision, like what you feel inside. And so it can be scary, but it's also kind of a good moment to maybe pause and think about things. So in terms of AI search optimization, basically the idea behind it is that someone is searching in an AI and basically an AI tool might recommend your business or it might pull information from your website. So again, for your business, Lynette, maybe there's a searcher out there who's like, I'm struggling in my career. I'm 50, whatever, I'm 40. I want to change careers. What are the best midlife women coaches out there? And the AI tool will pull up, 5 to 10 recommendations, and you would probably want to be in there, right? So that is how an AI tool could serve as basically another marketing tool to getting recommended and getting found. And it's very similar. It can feel similar to Google or a search engine because it's that searching, right? So how is it changing? So right now there's a little bit of a hybrid because a lot of the things that we do for SEO actually do work for AI optimization, AI search optimization in terms of creating useful content like we've been talking about, like really valuable, thinking about what are people searching. With AI it gets a little tricky because we're not using isolated keywords anymore. We are having these full-on conversations with our AI assistants. And so I think that the content needs to be incredibly good and incredibly focused on what are the things that people are searching and like what are the things that are keeping them up in the middle of the night. I always say, like, what is your audience worried about at 2 a.m., right? And they wake up and they're thinking about it. So those are the search terms and those are the topics and themes you want to be thinking about. And then there's all the other stuff like that could be boring, like the technical. Again, these assistants are surfing our sites, so we need to make sure they can get to the things they need to get to, eventually the agents as well. I haven't talked about it all, but there's a whole authority piece building. So in order for AI and Google to recommend you, you need to be seen as an authority in your space. And ways of doing that is, again, having other authority sites mention you and basically having you featured. So being on podcasts could be a strategy. Looking at how maybe a newspaper or online news site could mention you. Anyway, like basically PR is kind of that area, but it can go in different directions. It doesn't have to be like you're on the front page of Vogue or something. It could be a smaller scale. It really just depends on your industry as well. But you need to be featured in other places. You need to be mentioned because otherwise it's hard for Google to see your authority and for the AI tools. Another kind of interesting one is building your own Wikipedia page because Wikipedia is a very high authority website that a lot of people go to get information. And so you can register your business on there and tell people what you're about.
Okay, that's amazing. So, all right, the 3 SEO shifts any woman can start today.
Yes,
What
I
would be
love
your
this.
top 3?
Yes, I'm all about action. Okay, so the
Yeah.
first one is set up your Google Analytics. Some of you are going to be like, your Google Analytics and your Google Search Console, which is a free tool by Google. Just search Google Search Console and just register your site on there. And those are your tools. They're free. And that's how you're going to be able to measure progress and get motivated by this stuff. Because when you start seeing, oh, people are finding me, you're going to be, you're going to be like, oh, these people are coming to my site. They're seeing me, right? And eventually in Google, you can also track, money that you're making from each of these marketing channels. So you want that tracking. So that's definitely number one. Number two, I would say, is get to know your audience and like maybe take a poll. Like once in a while, I'll do this where I'll poll my email list and I'll ask them, what's going on for you? Just tell me about what's going on for you. I don't even necessarily ask them like, how are you searching for my services? Because that people are going to be like, I don't know. But I haven't done this recently, but it was helpful at the beginning is I would say in a Facebook group, I would put like, hey, I'll give you 15 minutes of digital marketing support in exchange for 15 minutes of me asking you questions. And I would just have a conversation and ask them like, what are you struggling with right now in your business? How are you getting clients? How are you getting leads? And that would give me all these ideas of the content I can build, right? And what people are really thinking about and searching for, right? Because if they're thinking it in their head and it's like the top thing, that's probably what they're searching for. So that's my second tip. And then, the third tip is kind of what we were talking about before. Just start where you're at. You don't need to know all the elements of SEO to do it right. Just put a timer, 15 minutes, and create some content on your site that you think your audience would like. Like that's as simple as it can go, right? Now, yes, there's all these things that need to happen, but if you can just start with 15 minutes and then just book that weekly or, once a month, maybe you have like an hour, it all works. The thing with SEO is the longer you wait, the longer it takes to rank, right? So you want to plant those seeds as soon as possible because they're going to be working in the background. And that's the other cool thing about SEO is you could probably create a bunch of content this month and then you could leave it alone for a little bit. You can just ignore it, which is odd, right? With the rest of our marketing, we have to like be pumping all the time and creating. So you could do that and then come back to it in 6 months and see, oh, look, this one's ranking well. I'm going to go back and rewrite some parts of that. Look, there's another keyword I didn't think about. Like, I'm going to go back and improve that. And eventually, maybe you do want to think about, I'm going to have a web developer. I'm going to have a team who's helping me with the technical things, because unless you want to spend your time learning technical things, it might not be the best use of your time, especially if you're starting and you're looking for clients. But if you can start to do the content, right, which is, I think, the easiest for us to wrap our head around, that's going to serve you big time in the long run.
No, that's great. I mean, I think you just dropped so much great information. On top of all of that, like I heard you say, make sure you have your own site, like claim your digital space, one simple page, repurpose. We hear it all the time. But what I'm hearing you say is think in questions, not keywords. I thought that was super interesting. You said that because the authority piece, right?
Yeah.
And it used to be, let's just dump a bunch of keywords. Maybe it didn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Hashtag this, hashtag that. But I think value thought leader, I really liked it. That's great. Cinthia, tell us a little bit about how could somebody start working with you?
Yeah. So you can go to our site, digitalbloomiq.com, and there we've got a bunch of information. We actually recently migrated the site, so we're working on our own SEO, but it's a little bit like the cobbler's kids have no shoes situation. And then I've got, like I mentioned, I have courses. I've got an SEO course called Homegrown Traffic and an AI visibility course called Found in AI. And I'm doing it cohort style. So that means that there's a lot of one-to-one support. There's a lot of just like hands-on hot seats and stuff like that, because I want these business owners to come in, do the work, and then go back to running their business and not have to worry about it so much, right? Like just do enough and then you can go back to doing the things you like to do or the things you don't like to do but need to get done. So you can get more information about all my courses by going to courses.digitalbloomiq.com, and you can check all those out there.
Amazing. Well, Cinthia, thank you for sharing your such powerful information. I think that you just gave so much. There's no reason why you can't start a search engine optimization today in your business after listening to this. And I think your mastermind cohort style is amazing as well. So thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Lynette. I had a great time.
Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.